Hi, everyone. Hope you guys are having a great weekend so far. Yeah, today is going to be a little bit different. I normally don't stream on Sundays. Well, I do occasionally. I normally do on Sundays, but since yesterday's stream was really brief, I had to cut it short. So I do the second one for today. So what I'm going to do for today is going to be just a little bit different. I'm going to do another little fan art drawing. And I'm actually going to do one of my personal favorite shows from Animaniacs. And this one's going to be a little different because it's going to feature at least 4 characters. So to start off, let me just kind of lightly sketch out the whole scene. It's going to be very light while I'm doing it. So what I figured I'd have in mind for this particular scene is that those of you that are probably familiar, with Animaniacs, there are a bunch like 3 like zany anthropomorphic kids that tend to roam around the Warner movie lot, get in all kinds of trouble and mayhem. But also, one of the things that happens all the time, they're constantly being chased by this big guard named Ralph the Guard. But he's always kind of fooling around and kind of ducking every chance they get. So I think I'll draw a scenario note. And one of the things he always tries to do, he tries to catch this huge butterfly net. So one of the things I think I'll probably do is actually draw a scenario where they pretty much turn the tables on where they actually catch him instead. So I think what I'll do here is actually draw one of the ones right here, actually holding said net. The net right here. There we go. That looks good. I think I might have this be Yakko right here. Wacko, probably the Milsim, he's probably going to be right here in the middle. And you can see, like same as usual, I'm just kind of lightly going over the sketches I've done. Not little slight sketches I've done, I'm just kind of lightly putting out some very light marks just to map out the whole scene. There we go. I'll probably have Dot right over here, the youngest sibling. There we go. Let me actually start with her little head. Let me make sure she's at the right height. Actually, bring her up just a bit. Bring it up just a bit.
Miles de personas pudieron comenzar, administrar y hacer crecer sus pequeñas empresas con la
And her large skirt. And her legs.
Para encontrar la ayuda que buscas.
Also, I'm gonna make sure I get their tail because they have very long, bushy tails. And also, of course, I can't forget our big chubby guard, Ralph. He's actually inside here. And you can see as I'm drawing, he's gonna be kind of squished together inside that net because the net's pretty small. So I like how I draw his proportions because I am going to refine this just a little bit. We get his little hat. And now, so now we got our good overall general composition down. So now we pretty much have our scene set. Let's start refining by drawing out these characters a little bit more. So let me start off, with doing Yakko right here. Who's kind of more like the de facto leader of the group. So we start with his face and we give him his nice like beady eyes. We draw his little nose. It's very long, so it kind of goes down and forms around his little mouth. We draw his little cheeks. We draw the arches around his eyes. Because one thing about Yak and really the rest of the ones, they kind of have a similar design, similar how a lot of Mickey Mouse characters and really have early cartoons of the 30s used to look. Because they have that very retro, like rubber hose style. Let me give him his little whiskers, little hair parts. Fun fact: these little hair parts on Yakko's cheeks, these were actually a pretty late addition to their designs when the show was being made. For a long time, they didn't have these little bits, and a lot of people actually thought they were like Mickey Mouse characters. So they add that to give a tiny bit of distinction to avoid any confusion. We give it some long ears. We give him a little tuft of hair at the top. We draw his little torso. We draw top of his slacks. His large belt buckle. And they're very long. His were very long and baggy. Which fits because there's just the 90s. We get his little feet. Let me get his tail. And also, let me get his little arms, because keep in mind, he's the one that's going to be holding the net. Let me get his little gloved hands. You can see the handles and he can kind of bend since he is carrying a pretty heavy load. No need to. There we go. Hey Isaac, glad to see you. When I watched the show back on W Kids years back, I always thought the murders were meerkats. It's funny, they almost kind of do look like meerkats in a way. Not to mention that. I always kind of think of that one song they had. I think it's called "What Are We?" Because people always keep thinking they were dogs or they were cats. People didn't know they were puppies, and some people and we were surprised that people thought were meerkats too. Another interesting thing about this show is apparently back when the show was still in the drafting process, there were considering having them be ducks, but apparently I can't remember who had said this, but apparently someone at the show felt there were too many duck shows on TV already because, and to in a way it makes sense because keep in mind you already had Ducktales, you already had Darkwing Duck, then you had Tiny Toons as where Plucky Duck was already a popular character. So that's true. You had a lot of characters at the time that were very popular that had to feature duck characters. So I understand. Oh yeah, you also had what was that show that Jason Alexander replayed the duck? Duckman. And yeah, they pretty much had an obsession with ducks, which I can say ducks are adorable. Donald Duck, Mighty Ducks, that was another great one. Yeah, they really did obsession with ducks. So I totally understand they want to try and like do something different to kind of make them stand out. Oh god, Mighty Ducks, I haven't seen that one in years. So let's get his little feet going here. Okay, I think Yakko's looking pretty good here too. Let me make sure I get this. Let me get the shape of his hand here. Let me see. Let me get that nice and good. Yeah, but that is funny. I never thought of being meerkats, but that actually really fits. And funny, like kind of a side note, with like those Disney shows like DuckTales, Mighty Ducks. Funny enough, a lot of those shows I really didn't get into really watch until like years later, until like they were kind of being phased out. Like I remember catching them occasionally, back when they were airing reruns all the time, back in the day years ago. But I remember really not. The part is, I think a lot for a good time, I didn't have access, to Disney Channel. Went until we got our parents didn't really get cable until like probably about years later. And by that time, when I started seeing like on Toon Disney, of course, and Disney XL, at that point they were kind of already being phased out. So a lot of times I would see is if I occasionally kind of saw them online and really ended up like really liking those shows. Now, granted, with Animaniacs, this show I remember seeing a lot, seeing very frequently a lot. Like growing up, on especially on Cartoon Network, occasionally it caught on Nickelodeon. I remember for a brief period of time, I remember Boomerang, they aired them for a while too. Even I'm pretty sure who referenced the older Warner Brothers that were so forgetto or lame just to dunk on them. Yeah, I do remember. I think that was a 65th anniversary episode, and yeah, they did reference Bosco. I haven't really seen too many on the Bosco shows, the actual ones, and it. But I remember well, what was the one they? I'm not thinking of Bosco. They ripped on another character too. I'm trying to remember his name. What was the one they did? Buddy, I think that was the one. It was the Buddy cartoons. I remember they really kind of dunked on him because apparently, like the real like Buddy cartoons, because they came out after the Bosco ones came out. But the only thing about it is, the Buddy ones, they were notorious, just very very forgettable, just being very cutesy, and of course, Animaniacs, they are opposite of being very like cutesy. So it wasn't surprising they kind of really ripped into them. So now that I got Wacko looking pretty good, let's move on to Wacko next in the middle. So let me kind of get his little beady eyes going. Let's get his little nose. Let me get his nice hanging tongue. Oh, and the reboot. I don't know why I was thinking. For some reason, I was thinking the original show. I almost forgot they did represent the reboot too. And also in relation to the reboot, I know it might be on like public. I actually do kind of like how the new reboot handled the Animaniacs. I definitely do feel the show got better as it went along. Like season one being all right, even though I felt the humor like the first scene it was kind of cynical at times. Once season two came around, they actually got a lot more. It got a lot more playful, kind of with how Animaniacs actually was. By the time we got to season three, they kind of nice mix. Of course, actually like adding old characters, new characters. They had good songs. They had some pretty good episodes. And I'm also agreeing. I feel like that finale episode, it could have been very better, but I did find it pretty enjoyable. It probably net reboot or introduced in any way. I'm not cynical. It's up and done right. It's funny. Oh yeah, I agree. I think the last thing I remember like really rebooting him and actually kind of really did him well is probably that one Tiny Toons episode, which I think funny enough was actually called Animaniacs, where Babs Bunny actually looks like old forgotten cartoons, and she actually brings up Bosco and his girlfriend Honey. And even though they kind of redesigned the characters a little bit, it actually did a really nice sending tribute, to those both of those characters. Let's get his little arms. Let's get his little fingers. But yeah, I do really kind of enjoy it. I feel like compared to a lot of like cartoon reboots that came out as of lately, and granted, I haven't seen all of them, but it's definitely one of my favorites. I feel it's definitely one of those reboots that actually aims to hit high. And even though there may have been a few episodes here and there where they don't always hit, but when they hit, they really hit. And I do appreciate that they actually did try to do that. Plus, I do like that how that at the very least they did get most of my favorite characters back. Where the little Busco was supposed to be? Give me just a moment. Make me change out my pen. Still changing out this other pen. Give me just a few more seconds. All right, I'm back. Now for Bosco. And this will kind of show you the times it came out. Now, in the original shorts back in the 30s when they came out, he actually was a he actually was kind of a human. It's supposed to be kind of a little black boy. But I know in later years, especially when we got to the Tiny Toons, show, he was actually redone as a dog. And honestly, I think when they redone the guy, it was a much better look for him. A lot for him, but thankfully, like refine his character and kind of change them up over time. And honestly, I feel like that's one thing that you should do when you have like popular characters that may have some very problematic elements. Is that instead of like trying to like remove them or kind of cancel them entirely, you can actually retool them and improve on their greatest aspects, but while taking out the things that they're a little more abhorrent. Oh my, can't wait till Disney starts running out movies, so they'll start making live action Pixar movies. Boy with old Tony Stretch that look young with bad CJ. Oh god. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised, if that starts happening. Can't wait till they start running out movies. Movies. Yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised, if that actually starts happening. But at the same time, I'm kind of starting to. I've noticed. See, maybe it's just me. I feel like they're kind of starting to slow down on doing some of these remakes, mainly because pretty much every reboot that's come out over the past few years, it's always been, even though like what Teddy may have done well, maybe box office wise, they've always gotten this very mixed reception. And I know they were gonna. I heard there were plans. There was plans to do a Lilo and Stitch remake. I heard that got canceled, which thankfully I'm glad it did. Mainly because this is one of my personal favorite movie from like the early 2000s. Yeah, but Tom Hanks, that also reminds me of Tom Hanks. That just reminds me. I still haven't seen the new Lightyear movie yet. I've heard it's okay. But I figure if we're gonna do all these remakes of these old Disney movies, I figure at the very least they could do it for movies that either didn't do well or kind of like a Rocky and representation. No, what word I am missing words today. Movies that tend to have a pretty lesser reputation. Like honestly, I wouldn't be I'd be on board if they did a remake of the Black Cauldron. That was a Disney that came out back in the '80s, and that one kind of noise reputation because one, it was a huge flop. It tanked the box after it came out, but also it was more of a fantasy adventure film, but it had a very dark tone to it. And I think since nowadays, since Disney's more used to doing more fancy adventure films, I could see them doing it and having better reception to it. Now, granted, I think with that particular movie, they should do work on making more of a series rather than doing a single standalone movie because the books it was based on was actually a series of books. I think it was 3 books, and they tried to combine I think 2 of them all together in one movie. So I think they would do it today. They should they should probably do it as a series rather than doing it just a singular movie. All right, so now that we got Wacko looking pretty good too, let's get Ralph, our security guard. So let's draw his kind of his massive arms. Gonna have him bunched up inside that net. Cobra is gonna be played by a light skinned actor and Peter Pan. So far, no concept of realistic Stitch surface. That's convincing fan art. Oh wow, that is my first time hearing that. Yeah, I'm not surprised. People have probably been blowing up about that. I don't even know. I can't even imagine the Stitch how Stitch I would have looked. Yeah, and I don't see how to. I'm curious what they would have came up with because I feel with Stitch's original design, like you really can't really improve upon it because Stitch's original design already has that nice mix of like creepy and cute, and he had a really kind of appealing design. So I would have hated to kind of really see how they would have kind of changed it up. In other words, And the weird thing is, with those live action remakes, I tend to have like kind of mixed feelings on them because on one thing, because I honestly I tend to feel kind of frustrated with them because yeah, I feel like on one hand they try to keep it safe, they try to keep everything familiar for audience people to recognize. But other times they'll change things, but not in a way where it does, it stand on its own. Where if I were to watch this film, I can enjoy it on its own merits and not compare it to the original film. Like I feel one of the only few things I recall remakes I recall seeing that I remember really kind of liking was the Jungle Book remake because even though it had a different tone, it had its own its own feel and and its own unique identity, and it didn't feel like it was trying to rely on the original too much. Let me get his bottom lip here. Let me get his protruded chin, and also related to that's with Lilo and Stitch. Like one thing I was kind of concerned about them kind of doing that is that since that show it's a very kind of more, what's the word I'm looking for? In a way, it's a more down to earth film. Let me see. Lilo and Stitch was one of my favorite movies going to lead art. So it was originally going to be a parody of 50s B movies. Just like a lizard. That I do remember hearing. That was going to be more in Kansas. And funny enough, I kind of see him going with that concept early on because I figure, you know what, you bring this alien to the middle of America where there's hardly nobody around, and then change it to Hawaii where they're on an island where there's nothing but water around. And funny enough, I think with the whole 50s B movie thing, I remember thinking that when they did the TV series, they kind of started bring some of that campiness into the actual show, or at very least, they brought into a lot of like Lilo's like ticks and likes. 'Cause I remember she was really into those like 50s movies. But part of the reason I think I'm really kind of liking show because like it's a very low key, kind of more down to earth film compared to a lot of those other films that were coming out at the time, like Treasure Planet and Atlantis, which I think are great movies. But the only thing about Lilo and Stitch, it wasn't trying to be a huge blockbuster like those films were. And surprisingly, it ended up being a much bigger hit compared to those films. Yeah, also think about Jumbo Shred, Domestic Terrorist, Spider-Man, the slightly more risk. Yep, yeah, that is very true. Because you basically create all the experiments, and their sole purpose is to actually cause mayhem and destruction. They get his little ears. We get to brim his cap. Yeah, I really like that movie. I remember really liking the sequel movies. I really liking the show. And I've mixed experience. I remember even the sequel Stitch Hatchet Glitz. I remember that one being pretty good. I have mixed feelings about it. It's not as well, of course it's not as good, but of course it's not going to be as good as the first. But I feel that particular one really tried to kind of capture the more emotional, like drama feel of the first one. Because I feel with the TV series, they kind of went into more like the alien kind of sci-fi things, whereas here, with the second movie, the second sequel, they really tried to lean more into the actual emotional family side of things, which I liked. All right, back here, let's see me get Dot right here. Let me get her little nose and snout going. And just get her head. And also her hair, he kind of has a little kind of a whip. I don't know about necessarily a Windows peak, but it does kind of come down and comes to a little point right here. And see her floppy ears, they're kind of tied together with a little flower bow. So I'll put that in the middle here. Oh, off the rep. Let me get his little fingers right here. Let me get her little torso. Let me get her little arms. Let me get her legs. I remember that too. Leon Sid was affected one of the last used water brown background colors. Yeah, in fact, all the backgrounds in that movie were done with watercolors. And I've heard part of that because they wanted to kind of save on a buck. They were gonna save on budget. Apparently, I think they don't know you tend to use acrylics and other memes in your regular paintings, but yet they used all watercolors in that one. And I gotta say, they do a fantastic job because watercolor it can be a really tricky medium to use because with watercolor, like it depends on how much water you use. Because if you use too little pigment, too little water, the pigment you use from paint, it's not really gonna go that far. But if you use a lot of water, it can go all over the place and get really muddy and messy really quick. So it's amazing like how well they did their backgrounds. And actually, fun fact, I actually did see that in theaters. It was actually one of the few Disney, at least from the Disney. Well, I guess not Disney Renaissance, but post Disney Renaissance that I saw in theaters, like back when it first came out. And what's funny is like at the time, like when it first, I remember I was in trailers and I saw trailers for it. Like I honestly didn't want to see because I thought for some reason I thought it wasn't gonna be all that good. I saw it look weird, I looked freaky, but I remember when we actually went to go see it, I was like, oh wow, this is actually a really fun film because it has a really adorable character with Stitch. Really like Leo, especially our bond with Nani because they have a really good. He has a that one is a really good portrayal. Just like two siblings, especially among sisters, because I know a lot of people tend to kind of like go towards Frozen, how they portray love between two siblings, but I feel like Leo and Stitch they kind of did it first. And in a way, I think they did it better too. We get her little tail. There we go. They get the little net. In fact, let me kind of put a little indentation for his feet since they're kind of sticking out. All right. So actually, hang on. Let me see. Oh yeah, of course. I forgot her other arm. Duh. And since Whack and Yaku made their big catch, we got the Dot and Meyer catch with a little camera. I think I kind of a little bit throwback to the 90s. Let me give comp. Well, I'll stick with more of a modern camera. I was gonna do it with our Kodiak. Let's make it a little more modern. There we go. That looks good. That looks good. All right, cool. So now we got our main sketch ready to go. Let's start refining just a little bit your uses of our other pens. So let me get one of my other pens. Stand by. Now we're gonna use this blueprint to kind of refine some of our extra details. And actually, I'm planning to use another pen for this later on. But right now, I just want to kind of fine tune everything. And also another fun fact, with Lilo and Stitch, Chris Sanders, the guy who directed the movie and the guy who was actually voiced Stitch. Funny enough, he ended up kind of working for DreamWorks. In fact, he ended up doing the movies of How to Train Your Dragon, and he ended up designing the main dragon, Hiccup. And funny enough, if you look at Hiccup's design, you can kind of see a lot of design sensibilities in Stitch, and you'll really kind of draw that tightrope between being kind of like creepy but cute at the same time. Yeah, just really kind of trying to fine tuning my line work here because I am gonna kind of go over this with another pen. Without Chris and his team, a lot of kids moving in 2020 would have sucked. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Yeah, because this stuff always has a really great sensibility because like they're cute, but funny, but they have a great sense of maturity to them. I guess considering the fact when I found out that he worked on How to Train Your Dragon series, that probably explains why I ended up liking that series a lot too. Because on top of being very heartfelt, they were very fun. They're very fun as well. Let me get his little ears. Yeah, but I remember, like Leo says, that was one of the few like post Renaissance like Disney schools I got a chance to see in theater because I saw that. I saw Home on the Range, which was okay. Saw Princess of Frog, which I do remember really liking. I remember seeing was I see Treasure Planet or Atlantis? I remember seeing Atlantis. I remember that one being pretty fun. Because as far as like the classic like Renaissance films, I don't remember seeing too many of them. Because I remember seeing Tarzan, I remember seeing Mulan, I remember seeing that, and let me see, what else did I see? I think I vaguely remember seeing Lion King. I think I vaguely remember seeing that one. But other than that, I didn't really see too many of the Paris Renaissance until they were on VHS. But of course, at that time when I was coming, that was that point when VHS really started popping off. And funny thing about Disney with VHS, apparently because I remember seeing a video on YouTube, I think a while back that kind of talked about it. They really didn't get into the whole like videotape game until like much later on, to like the late 80s and 90s. Like because even though videotapes have been around like since the 70s, Disney really kind of held off on putting them on VHX. Apparently, on one time, on one hand, I get it, but I don't get it. Yeah, apparently, like a lot of the classic films, like say like Snow White, Pinocchio, and Seven Dwarfs, they didn't want to put them on VHS because apparently didn't want to devalue, their legendary status. And so they really kind of want to keep them to where you can only have they only have them re-released in theaters. So like every few years, like they came out, they'll be released in theaters, and people come to go see them. But of course, and what they realized, especially once Little Mermaid came out and that became a huge hit, said, okay, we need to start releasing our stuff, kind of like right away because while we know a lot of people are gonna go see them in theaters, a lot more people are gonna want to actually take them home and watch them in the privacy of their own home. Let me kind of get his little, kind of get his little arms here, his little hand. Yeah, I kind of just want to get his arms. Speaking of movies, I kind of almost wish we got more than one movie for the Animaniacs because I remember there was only one, which was Wacko's Wish. And I remember that, and that was pretty good. It was a pretty nice send off to the show. But I heard there were plans to actually make a couple more. I think I heard one that I think there was gonna be different concepts where they had to do some more, putting down more of the Looney Tunes characters, and that would have been really neat if they got a chance to actually do that. Because I feel they would have really thrived by doing the more stuff with the movies. But it ended up not happening. Yeah, looking good. Zippy, Wreck-It Ralph, Jungle Book, Lion King, Juice, Alice Planet, Winner, Hercules, Goofy Movie, Fantasia, Alice. Oh yeah, all those movies. Let me see. Let me see what else needs to tweak. Oh, yeah, let me make sure that's a little more defined. Let me get his little hands. Yeah, but I'm kind of bringing out some more finer details. There we go. Sorry, I'm not talking too much right now. Just kind of trying to fine tune some of these details because I want to get them look pretty good before I really start inking a lot of these outlines in. So I want to make sure they look pretty good before I really start getting into that. The record. It's funny, of all those movies that got listed there, because let me see, I've seen Alice, seen Fantasia. I think that was actually one of the first Disney movies I think I ever saw. Sword and Stone, seen that, seen Treasure Planet, seen Hercules, seen Tarzan, Goofy Movie. That was one of my first two. I think actually, you know what? I think Fantasia and Goofy. I think those are the very first Disney movies I ever saw, and I saw those back when we had both of them on VHS. Snow White, I've seen that. Moana, Lilo and Stitch, Beauty and the Beast, pretty great one. Lion King, Jungle. I have not. I've. It's been years I've seen that one. One of the only one surprise I haven't seen is Wreck-It Ralph yet. You know what? I've seen parts of it, but for some reason I had a chance to really see. I had a chance to really see the whole thing just yet. But I need to get on to do it because I know that one's pretty good. I've heard the sequel not so much, but I know the original one's pretty good. Let me bring it down over here. Bring the little top of her hair. Yeah, funny thing with a lot of those Disney movies, like I think whenever I saw them, since a lot of the classic Renaissance ones and the ones I didn't really see in theaters all that often, I usually got exposed to them either if we had the VHS, because I know Aladdin, which is one of my favorite Disney movies, I didn't see that in theaters. Well, it was one, I wasn't born yet when it first came out, but we had it on VHS, and that's why I remember seeing it. But also, later years when I had to like Toon Disney, Disney XD, when they started airing a lot of these older movies, that's when I actually started catching them. Because for a long time I didn't really watch Disney Channel that much. I was more of a Nickelodeon kind of Cartoon Network type of person, and I used to kind of watch the old shows there. Because that was how I was more familiar with this show because they used to play that show all the time on Cartoon Network. Yeah, okay, that's gonna be pretty good. Cartoon and Boomerang Kid too. Oh yeah, You know what's funny? Out of all like I think the three channels that dominated my childhood, and still kind of dominate a little bit my adulthood today. I would say dominate are still kind of part of my adult day. You know, it was Cartoon Network was the first, then Nickelodeon, and then Disney Channel. But probably my unofficial fourth channel that I really loved was Boomerang because I think when I got a little older and I started older and a lot of the good shows I like would be phased on Cartoon Network, I would turn to Boomerang and I would watch all those shows I liked growing up. And I really loved it because like at this point, since I was much older and I started rewatching these older shows I watched like growing up, I ended up having a more deep appreciation to it because I would watch it with I would understand a lot of the jokes. In fact, that's part of the reason how I ended up really liking Animaniacs like more later on than I did when it first came out because I got the jokes more. I got jokes more. I understood a lot more of the references. Okay, so what we're gonna do now I'm gonna use a different ink pen to kind of like refine the outlines. So I'm saying use a regular ballpoint. I'm gonna use a different pen. So let me see if I can break it out real quick. I should have it on me. The Man Flip song, yeah, it kind of does too. And think about, I remember having that for a good while. I think until at least the cable service I had, for some reason, taking it off for some reason. And I hear Boomerang, they have their own streaming service now too. I've heard their streaming service is okay, but they don't everything have everything on there. Like I've noticed now, granted, part of that's because they rebranded the show to kind of suit more for a lot of like 92,000 shows that we've grown up with, and not too much of like say the Hanna Barbera, like Tom and Jerry stuff from back in the day. But even then, like I remember like the last few years, when I watched Boomerang after they rebranded it, I remember liking it being okay because I felt they didn't play the old stuff, as much. And it seemed like they would kind of play the same ads for like the newer show like over and over again. Where's this one? There's this one pen that I had that I was trying to find. Well, actually, what? Found one of them. Found one of them. Who at one styles guy to make plans to a horror film? I have no idea why that became a thing. I haven't seen little clips I've seen. I don't know why that was a good idea. Funny enough, I also kind of blame that horror film really killing that whole notion where a lot of like rebooted stuff needed to have it to be dark and edgy. I feel like once that came out, you start seeing that a lot less because I was like, yeah, that's way too out there. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here for our outline here, I'm gonna start with a very thick outline. So I'm just gonna outline just the overall shape of these characters. Now just now use a smaller pen for the inside. One banana, two banana, three banana, four. Always up to the banana split show. It's funny enough. Whenever I think of the next theme song, I always think of the version the punk band the Dickies did. Supposedly the script was ancient for Friday Nights at Freddy's movies, but Children thought it was cringe. Left warrants for Bloomhouse, but wanted to retool it. You know what? That I'm not surprised about that because that honestly seems like more like Friday Nights at Freddy's on Wheelhouse rather than Banana Splits. So I'm honestly not kind of surprised about to hear about that. And even though I haven't seen the show yet, I hear that new show Jellystone. I hear the Banana Split they are featured in that show, and apparently they do them a much better doing much better justice than the horror film did. Still need to get around to seeing that. Like I hear it does a lot of the Hanna-Barbera characters pretty well. And I'm just kind of giving pretty thick outlines for out there because normally when I do my pen a lot of my pen and ink work, I usually prefer to kind of like pretty thick outlines for the outside, just for the overall shape of these characters, and then I'll do smaller lines as I go further in. But yeah, for a good while, Boomerang was probably my fourth like favorite channel because it just had a nice mix of all the shows that I used to like, but like old and new. And funny enough, even like some later shows in 2000s that I remember not really came for that much. At the time, because I remember at the time it came out, I remember not really came for Teen Titans and Ben 10 when it came out. But I remember when I started catching them on Boomerang, like I remember rewatching, like, oh wow, like these are actually really good shows. I also remember doing the intro splits would just run around Six Flags. Those Six Flags were owned by HBO Essential Forever. So I guess, that's neat. I didn't know about that. I'm not surprised because I could definitely see them being used as like kind of like walk around. Well, in this case, run around mascots. I started running around Cloud Marches are gone. Yeah, that was kind of same for me. And it seemed like when they would air the older cartoons, they would air just the same ones over and over again. Like for Tom and Jerry, like it seemed like out of all the cartoons that they would keep playing the small handful over and over again. But it's like you got like over 200 worth of cartoons, and like that's kind of original Hanna-Barbera ones, the Chuck Jones ones. But yeah, y'all just only play a few handful, and yet for some odd reason, which I don't know why they did, they start playing these were like low budget ones made by Filmation in the 80s. And I don't know why they dug those up. And try to think what else did they kind of start doing after it kind of rebranded? And see, yeah, and the whole channel just felt like it was kind of on autopilot too, because like they would still do promotion for the same like Scooby Doo and like Scooby shows and movies that were already out, but they kept promoting the show like they were still brand new. But it's like, look, the shows are out already. People have seen them already. You don't need to promote like it's still a new thing. Yeah, it just kind of felt like it was kind of on autopilot for a while. Every major thing ever has a mascot. Disney has Mickey and the gang. Six Flags has DC, HB, Looney Tunes has Universal, Shrek, Nicktoons, and Woody Woodpecker. Yep. I remember there was a brief period where I think Garfield was a mascot for one theme park. I forgot the name, but it was very I want to say it was Cedar Park. It might have been something else. But it's true. Everyone does that, has a big mascot. Speaking of Boomerang, Hanna-Barbera, I remember. Yeah, Kennywood. That was it. You're right. It was Kennywood. That's why I forgot because I actually when I found out it was actually through it's actually that show Defunctland where they actually talked about the that dark ride that was themed with Garfield. But also with the Hanna-Barbera, I remember hearing about it, but the years I'm surprised I never went. It was Funtastic World of Hanna-Barbera was over at Universal Studios. And I have no idea how I ended up missing it, how I never went, because it was right across from Nickelodeon Studios I remember going to. And I was surprised I never went because that would have so been right up my alley. Because it looked like so much fun. Girl sins. Yeah, that was a great episode. I really do like the Funkland stuff. He adds so much, has so much research in all these different parts, and for such a niche subject too that most people wouldn't really think about. And again, it's surprisingly touching too. I know one that I was really touching was the one he did on, surprised on that rock band Disney did for Space Mountain, Halix, where he had a Star Wars themed rock band, which honestly I'm surprised they never did anything like that since then, especially since they own Star Wars now. It just seemed like a really cool idea, but they just never really did anything with it. I mean, aside from that. Yeah, see, so I'm just really kind of getting these outlines in. I think as far as theme parks go, the only ones I've been to, like Universal Studios, my family went to that several times. That was always our go-to. That, Isle Adventure, and we did Nickelodeon Studios, I think at least a few times. And I think we did Disneyland a few times. No, Disney World. Disney ever do Expedition Everest? Disney can't afford to buy all of Fox. Marvel Lucasfilms we can't afford Baby Game Monkey Electronics in the early 2000s. I don't know if he did. I don't know if they did. I'm not really sure if they did do that. Yeah, but yeah, you think with all that money that would be an easy fix. You know what? He might have. I'll have to check on that because I know he's done so many. They've done so many episodes on the Funkland. I wouldn't be surprised. There we go. So now we got our main thick outlines. Because we actually colored in this little bit right here, so it's gonna be all in black. This business, that's gonna be all in black as well. And actually, let me see. Oh, I almost forgot this section right here. Means a little bit of lighter pressure here since they're overlapping. But this is the thing, with the funk, like they're just looking at the Funkland video. There's just so many just different types of attractions, just like ideas that were probably out for like a short while. Some end up lasting for a good while, some only lasted for a hot minute. Okay, so before I go into smaller opinion, let me go ahead and color in the darkest areas first. So let me go ahead and start coloring in their fur, or at least outline it. I think I'll just outline for right now. There we go. There we go. Okay, let me break out a smaller pen for these other outlines. So give me just one moment. Let me break out my smaller pens. Here we go. Here we go. All right, perfect, perfect. Let me make sure this is the right one. Okay, here we go. Perfect. All right, so I'm just gonna use a smaller pen to kind of draw in these finer details. Sometimes the other times when I do ink work, usually a lot of times I'll start with the light. I'll start with the with smaller lines first before moving to big ones. But other times, like this time, I always go the other way around. It just depends on what I feel more comfortable with, at the time, at the moment. So let me get the net. Get the handle of his gloved arms. There we go. Yeah, this is turning out very nicely. Let me get his pant legs. There we go. And also, what I'm doing now, as I'm kind of making these like smaller lines, I'm also trying to kind of blend them in with the bigger lines, so it'll be more of an easier transition. Kind of gradually kind of go from thick to thin. Let's get his little hat. Yeah, this is coming together very nice and nicely. Yeah, I appreciate you all for kind of dropping in on the stream. Yeah, it's just yesterday since it being so short. Being so short, I just really felt I had to kind of make it up for it. So I appreciate you all for actually kind of joining in on this one. And luckily, since I have a little more time today, I can go a little longer than usual. So I figured, oh wait, this is perfect. I can get one longer and spend a little bit more time than I usually can. We get the bottom of his little feet. Let's get their little web toes because you can see in the warrens they all have like little 3 toes. Toes. I think the bottom of their feet they have a little indentation at the bottom. Each of their little feet, their little tiny feet. Oh yeah, I can really go and kind of color in their eyes too while I'm at it. Because they have pretty big highlights. If it doesn't look too perfect, that's okay. I got another pen I use to kind of brighten them up just a little bit. Yeah, now let me get the brims up our net. You can see for the edge of the net, I see I kind of bent down where it's kind of facing towards us. Part of that since it's gonna be a little more weight distributed on this side because you see, he's got his hands on the rib of the net, and also his feet are sticking out here as well. There we go. Yeah, right now I'm kind of this period where I tend to kind of call the zone phase. So normally when I know I've started on something that I'm really liking how it's turning out, and I need to get really focused and not talk as much. Sorry if I'm not really giving too much dialogue as of right now. But that's what happens when you really kind of get in the zone. Let me get his little hat. Get the little badge on top of his hat. And you can see our level oak is starting to come together a little bit more. And also, kind of brief side note, one thing I do appreciate, with the on the reboot with Animaniacs, but they actually did. That's for the most part when it came for the characters they did bring back. They did get the original voice actors. You wear Rob Paulson for Yakko, Jess Harnell for Wacko, Trace McNeil for Dot, and of course Frank Welker for Ralph, which I really appreciate. I mean, they're all like very talented, like veteran voice actors, so to really get a chance to hear again was wonderful. And even all those four actors, they've been a ton of stuff throughout the '90s. Amazing Rob Paul's is still voicing. It really is. But he's done so many characters like for Warner Brothers, for Disney, for Nickelodeon. In fact, for a while, I think it's still up. He actually had a podcast called Talking Tunes. And basically, what it was basically his own little podcast. He was a host and he would bring along like different voice actors he'd be friends and they would actually just talk about random things. I know He's had Jess Hartnell, I think at least once or twice. He's had Tress on there, I think at least once. I don't think he's had Frank Welker on there yet. I don't know if he's ever had him on there yet. But they're always like really fun, kind of laid back show. And the funny thing about it is that a lot of times what they'll do near the end of the show, like sometimes they'll kind of do little skits where sometimes it'll be skits from previous cartoons or also maybe skits from like previous movies, but they'll kind of do them in like various like cartoon characters. Like the funniest one I can recall was one he had John DiMaggio on because he was close friend with John DiMaggio, and they did kind of recreation of one of the scenes from 2000 Space Odyssey, but they had it where I think Rob was playing in the astronaut. He kind of playing as himself, but John DiMaggio he played Hal the robot, but he played him to where he sounded like Bender from Futurama, and it was pretty funny. Yeah, and he's been doing it for years. I think he started back in he's been doing voice I think since like the 80s, really. I think one of the very and what's funny is that with Paulson, he actually started off. Let me get his little badge here. He actually started off as more of a character action, live action movies, because that's actually what he initially wanted to do was actually want live action. But he found out, with voice that he really liked that a lot more because like the actor. That's true. He for just when he did voice Bandicoot because he did a ton because he's done a ton of characters too, and also funny enough, just for now he's also a singer in his own rock band too. I think it's called Rock Candy. Rock Candy. He's also a singer as well. In fact, all the boys, they're all like really good singers, and that's I think you got really special. Even the A-list voice actors, they don't get a lot of major Hollywood exposure. Yeah, that really sucks. And I think that's something I think that's slowly been changing the last couple of years. That I think people are just now starting to really respect voice actors now because like for years, like they always get second billing to like say celebrity voice actors. Because even I remember coming across a tweet thinking not too long ago. I think it was from Bob Bergen, and he was recalling how Space Jam back when it first came out, when they went to premiere, a lot of the voice of Looney Tunes characters, they weren't allowed to sit, the main stars or the directors of the film, even though they voiced, the Looney Tunes characters. And one thing I tend to be pretty annoyed, with celebrity voice actors, like they'll tend to get top billing. Yeah, like you said, over the A-list voice actors, even though they've done so much. But at least we're at the point now. These last couple of years, they're starting to get a little bit more attention now. Let me see. Let me see. That looks very good. Let me get her bow. Because let me think about a different voice actor I think he's interviewed. Because I know he's done Tresigny. I know he's done Jess. He's done Don DiMaggio. I know he's done Jim Cummings, my personal favorite voice actor. He's done him, I think, at least twice. He's done Dante Bosco, Zuko from Avatar. He's done him. I think that was one of the last ones he did. He did Kevin Conroy from Batman. He's done him. And also, I think he did one, I think, where he got, I think with Cam Clark, Greg Burson, I think it was John Coleman, I forgot his name. It was basically all the voice actors from the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Because that was one of his very first roles he did aside first like major cartoon roles before he did Animaniacs. You get the camera lens. He did the VA for Arthur Morgan. Rob played Carl. Apparently owed money. Carl apparently owed him money. Huh? I didn't know about that. That's the funny thing, with Rob. Like I'll see, like he'll always seem to pop in areas where I least expect it. Because sometimes I'll see him big stuff, when you're in Disney, with Warner Brothers. But then I'll see him like kind of smaller stuff that you never really heard about. Let me change out this pen for a moment. And one thing I think was really neat, just kind of hearing Paul's podcast. One of the things he really got into, like doing voice acting over other character acting. He always found that kind of so much more liberating because he plays different characters. He doesn't have to worry about the pressure of kind of being a Hollywood star. But yet he can have so much fun actually doing them and actually working on all these characters. And what's funny when I hear him talk, like his natural speaking voice just sounds like a very deeper version, just sounding like a deeper version of Yakko, this guy right here. And what's interesting because like it's weirdly with some voice actors, like some voice actors sound exactly like some of it sounds like the characters they voice, while some sound completely different. Like I know if Rob Paulson, even he does a live action stuff, Patrick's additional voice act. Yeah, Patrick Warburton, yeah, he's a really good one. Yeah, he's great too. Because of course, aside from the stuff he's did with Seth MacFarlane, with Family Guy, American Dad, he's done a lot of stuff with commercials, Kronk Kronk from Emperor's New Groove. Yeah, he has done so much stuff as well. In fact, I think Patrick Warburton, he's been on Talking News at least a few times as well. Yeah, he's a fantastic voice actor. In fact, I was like a voice acting. I still need to see this one movie that came out a couple of years back. John DiMaggio directed. It's called "I Know That Voice," and what it was basically where he kind of goes around and interviews like at least over 200 voice actors. And what was interesting was that he got a mixture of like new voice actors, but a lot of like old voice actors too, like even some from the golden age of Hollywood. So Jane Fonda, like June Foray from way back, like he managed to have her come on and speak for a little bit. Then even some of the Hanna Barbera days, I think John, I think it was John Oppenheimer, I think that was his name. It's a lot of different voice actors. And that's the thing about the whole voice, I think, it's like, yeah, even though people are paying more attention to it nowadays, it's just like for years it seems to become like an unappreciated art form because it's more because when it comes to voicing a character, it's more than just singing lines. You really kind of add your own inflections, add your own personality out to it, and there's an art to it in a way as well. Okay, I think we're looking pretty good here with our ink work now. Now his eyes looks a little bit red. Ralph's eye right here looks a little bit red. So let me take one of this white gel pen. Let me brighten it up just a little bit. That's one of having these gel pens that can kind of take away any stray marks. There we go. That looks much better. Probably tweak it a little bit later. Okay, now I think we're done. We're to the fun part now. We're gonna add a little bit of color for this one, and not just a regular red and blue color. We're gonna add some actual color. So let me get some of my markers. Who originally had traditional voice acting, but Rebecca Star wouldn't make as much about big names attacking or extra pack. I do vaguely remember hearing about that, and that always really annoys me with celebrity work, especially when those scenarios where you'll have them be voiced by actual voice actors who know what they're doing, and don't want to get celebrity voice actors. And granted, there are some celebrities who happen to be really good voice actors. I know like J.K. Simmons, like Samuel Jackson, like those are celebrity actors who happen to be really good voice actors. But then you have like more egregious examples. Like for example, a couple of years back, several years back, there was a movie for the Jets called The Jets movie. It came out back in 1990, and there was from what was the teenage girl character? Judy. Judy, that was the name. She was voiced by veteran voice actor Jane Fonda. So she had she had did all her lines. She had voiced them, but in a really odd choice by casting director Andre Romano. She has a really she had a really good track record of voice acting. This was a really odd flub from her. She decided to get at the time popular pop star Tiffany to redo it. Yep, yeah, it's true. Yeah, Oliver wrote was court, but they replaced it. I've heard now on a plus side, at least Jane Fonda, she still got vocal credit. I think she voiced another side character. I've heard, I can't remember where I heard this. I heard there was really one line for Judy that they kept in that was still voiced by Fonda. I forgot where. I can't fully prove that. But yeah, the rest was all done by Tiffany. And all of the, and I just kind of find that really kind of aggravating because it's almost like you don't really kind of value the crap that you really have. Floyd, let me color on his little noses here. Let me color in his red hat. And that was such an interesting product. And that movie has such an interesting production history too, because with Jets' movie, aside from Jane Fonda's voice being replaced, you had a couple other voice actors who need to be recast because one character actor who was in a lot of Danby films, 80s and 90s, Dom DeLuise. Yeah, he was a wonderful voice actor. Yeah, because he was in Secret Nim, American Tail, All Dogs Go to Heaven. Yeah, he did a bunch of stuff. Yeah, I think they really loved using him. And I don't think I called him seeing anything else, aside from a lot of Don Bluth stuff. Let me see if I got some blue here. Yeah, here we go. And one thing I liked, Dom DeLuise is like no matter what film he was in, whether it was good or bad, he always added a good sense of likability, whether characters he voiced. Yeah, he was another great one. Let me color his blue shirt. I think I'll kind of go on the outline of his shirt here for a little extra shading. But I think in relation with back in the Jetsons one, there was a couple of other changes that happened because I know Dawes Butler, who did Elroy, he had to be recast a new guy because he'd already passed away a few years before. And I know two veteran voice actors, of course, like Mel Blanc, who did Spacely, and George O'Hanlon, who did George Jetson. They had both passed away, during production. And luckily for them, a lot of their voice work is still stayed in the final film. But yeah, like I remember those always that trend where it seems like the movies with celebrity voice acting, like they'll always can be fake kept favored over like the actual celebrity voice actors, where it's almost like a marketing ploy in a way too. Because I remember for a while, well, it's still kind of extended even today too, where you see an advertisement for a new movie, and one of the only major selling point is look at all the celebrities got. We have Angelina Jolie, we have Brendan Fraser doing the voice for all these characters. And think about it is like, and while they're great on-screen actors, they may not always be great voice actors. So actually, hang on, let me get this black marker here. Let me color in our Warner's fur. Yeah, Don DeLuise was fantastic. What's another good one? What was another good one? Yeah, for Shrek, yeah, it really did. Especially with the voice actors there, like Cameron Diaz, Mike Myers, these were guys that really knew what they were doing. Yeah, and it's true because like if everyone just saw look at all these big names we got, we need to make that a feature for every animated film nowadays. Because yeah, when it happened with Shrek, that was kind of an unusual thing that normally didn't happen. Because in the past, you would have like celebrities voice cartoon characters, but that was usually kind of a rare thing. Like Aladdin, when they had Robin Williams voice, that was kind of a rare thing to have like a well-known person voice a cartoon character. Let me get those colored in their tail. Don't worry, I'm gonna do something here to kind of bring this back out. Vincent Price was comment. Yep, Vincent Price. One of the last was Feast and the Copper and Nightmare Before Christmas. But his two press was right for. Oh wow, that last part, I didn't even know about that. Because I knew he was the president. He was pretty sick near the last year's life. But I didn't know his wife had passed. Wow, he would have been great in Nightmare Before Christmas. That would have been right up his alley. I think one of my favorite like voice acting bits from him would have to be Great Mouse Detective. It's honestly, my opinion, it's one of my personal favorite Disney films from the '80s. That's my personal, mainly just for his performance because he had so much life to his character. And funny enough, with celebrity voicing, and like I think what's interesting is like how here's how commonplace for celebrities to do voice acting now. It seemed like back then, at least for years, it was normally reserved for celebrities that usually weren't as popular as they used to be, or maybe by ones near the end of their life. Because I know even like big time directors like Orwell, he was a big time like classic Hollywood director. He did voice acting near the end of his life. I think the very last thing he did was voice acting. He was in the Transform movie in the '80s. So it's interesting how kind of trends come and go when it comes to these type of things. There we go. There we go. Let me color more of his fur. Let me color in her fur as well. Yeah, Thief in the Copper. It's been a moment since I've seen that one. I think last time I saw them with cobbled cut, and I hear there is still stuff going on around that film today. Apparently, some like other anime. It's kind of like a fan project going to try to animate all the scenes that Richard Winter didn't get a chance to really finish. And it'd be nice to see the whole thing kind of fully finished because it's a pretty nice movie, but it was definitely kind of plays probably by being a little bit too overly ambitious. Because it was something that pretty much Richard did mostly himself for the most part, even though he did, get some funding here and there. But yeah, Richard Price, even in that one, he was definitely like the highlight. And weirdly enough, when I think of people of color, I also kind of think about the Miramax cut that actually did get in theaters, which wasn't so good. And in that one, I think they had a couple. There are a couple other like notable celebrity names that have to be good voice actors in that one. Because I know they got Matthew Broderick to do Tat. They have Airtel Ma's voiceover for the cop, the thief to do by Jonathan Winters. And that was kind of an interesting one. I think interesting kind of voice cast there. Like Matthew Broderick, I could hold understand because of course, this is right after Lion King, so he was still pretty popular at that time. But Jonathan Winters, he was more well known for kind of like not only for being an on-screen actor, for his impressions as comedian, but I think occasionally I think he did do voice acting work, mainly just with Hanna-Barbera. Let me color in his little tie. Disney tried to sabotage a lot of movies back in the 90s. Yeah, that is true. That's the kind of thing, about Disney. Like with Disney, Disney being on top of that as was, they just really could not afford, any competition. And I hear like similar thing happening with Don Bluth as well. Because because there was a period for a while, mainly in the 80s, his movies were doing a lot better than Disney. I can't remember what I found. I do remember coming across one interview where I don't call him being too. Now, granted, this might have been before his movies, before approaching movies were gotten sabotaged. I remember him not being too sore about like Disney's movies doing well. In fact, he kind of encouraged it because apparently his idea was like, this is what they should have been making all along. Because part of the reason I think Don Bluth like left Disney in the first place is that he felt like Disney kind of had it would bought by someone that is very exactly what had happened. And Don Bluth felt they had basically kind of like lost their path. They basically kind of strayed away from what made them the channel that the animation studio they were in the first place. And so he figured, I'm going to go off and do my own thing and do the things I want to do. And so, of course, when Disney starts coming out and making like Little Mermaid, Aladdin, and all these things that and to make a lot of money, it was like, well, see, this is what y'all should have been doing all along. The last movie he worked on was a Christian Drummer Boy adaptation. I heard, yeah, I do remember hearing about that. I don't think I've seen it, but I've heard of it. Let me see. Let me get a different marker here. What's be a good color for his slacks? This one will work. Yeah, because I think he left Disney. I think it was in the 70s. Yeah, it was like late 70s. Because I think aside from that one you just mentioned, I think the only main project he worked, I think it was Fox and the Hound. Because I think a lot of, in fact, that was I think a lot of people was going to work on Beauty and Beast years. That's right. That's right. He did have plans to work on a Beauty and Beast movie before Disney did, but I don't think that ever really came to fruition. That would have been really neat to see how he would have did his take on it. That would have been really neat. Cause I know he had quite a few like projects he had planned on working on throughout like the 80s and 90s, but for either one reason or another, they never came to fruition. I still want to try. I don't know if he's still planning on working on it. I still want to kind of do that movie adaptation for Dragon's Lair that he's trying to get off the ground. With exception of two movies, all are movies are owned by Universal. Yeah, Yeah, that is true. 'Cause I think the two that aren't on my universe, I think that's Anastasia. I think that was one of them. I think Titan AE. Probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I think those are two that are not on my universal. But I think he was trying to get the that Dragon Lairs animation off the ground. I still hope he can because he's getting up there in years, and I would really like to at least see him do one more film. I'd like to see him do one more film before it's time. Rockadoodle is on it. Yeah, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it honestly is a pretty underrated movie. Underrated movie. Because even though I think a lot of people tend to get it flat because it's great, it is a bit lighter in tone compared to some of his earlier stuff. And it has a little plot elements here and there. But yeah, it's a pretty fun movie. I agree. You know what? I think I'm gonna do for Ralph here. I'm gonna color more of what his current reviews on, where he has more of a gray, where he has more of a gray shirt, but it's more of a warm gray. So I'm gonna lay this down with some apricot first before I go over some gray. Okay, last source. Yeah, the only movie I can think of that he's trying to do as his very last movie is the Dragon's Lair project, where he's gonna do like an animated movie. That's probably the only other like major animation project he's trying to do. If that's the case, I'm all for him for doing that. Because I think what he does nowadays, he mainly just does like little art classes, like animation classes, like for upcoming animators. Yeah, so we color in his shirt here. Yeah, like I said, I think my personal favorite anim, animated film by with Don Bluth, it had to be American Tail. That's right. I like how it's like take two plays at the show and that Ralph just looks the same. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the only thing that changed was his outfit. The only thing that changed was his outfit and maybe just his voice because he's gotten deeper now. But then, of course, when you got voice actors who haven't done these characters almost 30 years, they're going to sound a little bit different. Funny enough, Funny enough, probably I was glad they brought him back. I figured, look, if you're gonna have all these Warners doing all these little crazy antics here all over the place, I mean, you can't do all that and not have him. At least in my opinion, you can't have him. You gotta have at least gotta have Scratch and Snip too as well. Let me see. Let me get a darker gray for his hat. Oh, I got dark gray here somewhere. Give me just a moment. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, that's a little more brownish side. I might color that with some brown a little bit later on. Yeah, he looks, acts, talks exactly the same. Really interesting little history about Ralph, this character here. He actually didn't make his first appearance in Animaniacs. He actually appeared as a side character, I think, in Tiny Toons. I think it was in one episode called Hollywood Plucky. And I think and it was one episode, I think, where somehow Plucky's trying to, get a movie made in Hollywood. And one of the scenes, where he's trying to get inside this one big studio, he's apprehended by a guard, and it happens to be Ralph. Now, they didn't call him Ralph, at least not in the beginning, but it's the same design, it's the same character. The only difference is, in Tiny Toons, in his appearances there, he actually he's actually smarter, he's more competent, and he always gets up on Plucky. And it's a really interesting contrast compared to how he's portrayed, of course, in Animaniacs later on. Let me color in his little badge. In fact, I think he's probably. It's funny because I think quite a couple of characters have actually like from time periods that appeared in Animaniacs. But I think he's probably one of the few that appeared in that show, but then become a regular feature, on this show. And I'm also surprised Frank Welker, who voices him, he's still voice acting too. Right, I don't think he's doing as much as he used to because he's getting up there. Because I think the only major character he does nowadays, is Scooby Doo. But he's getting up there too because he's done him because he's been voicing since like early like Hanna-Barbera days. And what's funny is that with Frank Welker with in the Scooby Doo show, like for years he only did Fred. He only did Fred Jones, and he really didn't start doing Scooby until I think the last couple of years. I think really around the time I think right before I want to say it was right around Mystery Incorporated. I think it might have been before Mystery Incorporated came out. He took over doing Scooby Doo. And it's amazing he's still because on top of just doing a lot of like characters like in cartoons, like he's done stuff for movies like animal noises, robots. He did Megatron. He has done that man has done so many like different types of voices. Let me see. Let me see. I should have another Pentagon color in the hat. There we go. There we go. Yeah, a little more extra gray to it. Let me color. So while I'm at, let me color in the net too. Yeah, this is coming together very nicely. Let me color in his beard. Let me color that in. Yeah, Frank Welker, we go. Yeah, 80% animated. Yeah, that's true. And funny enough, I'm pretty sure probably more than half of those, even those animated roles, are all for either for animal character, or just animal noises too. Because whether it be for monkeys, whether it's for monkeys or for ducks, he's for some reason he really loves animal noises. Like even in like say for example Aladdin, and like in the only voice that he did because he did the talking he did the lion head for the Cave of Wonders, the tiger head for Cave of Wonders, and he did Abu the monkey. And I wouldn't be surprised if he did some of the roaring for Raja the tiger too. Like that's just like how many types like voices he's done. And he's still going. Let me color in. Let me color his hands. I think what I'll do here, let me see what I want to do for the net. Let me see what I do for the net. Bring it down. There we go. I think I'll just use like this light, almost purple for the net. Just a nice kind of light purple, nothing too, just kind of brighten up the image a little bit more. There we go. Yeah, sorry, I'm just kind of getting back in the zone again. Yeah, this is turning out nicely. Also, let's go and color in Dot. Let me color in her skirt. Some pink. Near beauty, so you listen to some sound effects artists when December is doing listen to Captain and Monkeys for reference. I can see that. I can definitely see that. Because you'd have to be listening to probably be listening like animals constantly in order to be able to get the cadence to just sound just right. To even just do that on command like that. That's looking pretty good. Let me color in our little bow here. All right, so we're just kind of winding down. We're almost gonna be finishing up here pretty soon. So let me break out. So to kind of refine this a little bit more, let me break out our gel pen, one of our gel pens. So I'm going to use that to kind of get rid of some of these red lines. Just kind of take out some of these white lines. Because even though I do want this thing to, I want this to have a kind of a sketchy look to it, I do still want to kind of get rid of some that are probably going to be a little too distracting. Let me add some highlights for their noses. Let me mark out his arms here. So you can tell apart from tail, mark his other arm here. I tend to use these a lot. If I'm doing a lot of characters that have a lot of dark fur, I tend to use it kind of bring back the outlines. It's like I did here. Like here, I'm going to do it here for part of Yako's hair here. Because everything can tend to blend together. For sure. Let me kind of bring back. We kind of brighten back up Yako's face a little bit. I mean, Wacko's face, sorry. We kind of bring. Let me kind of bridge the arch of his brow here. It's funny, listening to that thing about Cabbage and Monkeys. That actually kind of reminded me of another funny that reminded me of one where we did Curious George. He actually voiced Curious George in that movie. And that movie is really nothing but him just making monkey noise throughout the entire movie. But that movie is actually a pretty fun movie. It's pretty underrated. I remember it came out like in the mid. I think it came out. I think like the late 2000s. I remember it doing okay, but I don't think it doing okay. But I don't think nobody really talked about it for a while because it's a nice, charming, simple kids movie. It's a beautifully one too. Let me probably bring out her hand a little bit more here. All right, that looks good. Should be calculating inside of his tongue here. Forgot that. I'll get the tongue in just a moment. Let me kind of go over some of these lines a little bit more. Kind of get any ones that still look kind of odd. Let me kind of bring his eyes out a little bit more. Sorry, I was kind of running on ink again for a moment. There we go. There we go. Let me color in her mouth. Didn't realize I hadn't done that. There we go. That looks pretty good. We color in both their tongues. Didn't realize I had done that. Here. Let me color in Dot's camera. Give me just one moment. Let me just kind of color that in. All right, that looks good. That looks good. Trying to see. Let's see if I want to do anything else to it. Let me see. Oh yeah, what? I know exactly what I can do to really kind of make this pop just a little bit more. I know exactly what I want to do. Got some colored pencils right here. Just to kind of make it pop, I'm gonna add a little bit extra shading to really just kind of bring it on in. So I'm just gonna use some brown here for Yakko's slacks. Baloney in our slacks for him. Because even though I'm liking it already, I want to make it pop just a little bit more before I hang it up for today. All right, that's looking pretty good. Now I'll do the same for Wacko's shirt. I'm gonna use a little bit of blue. Actually, let me try with this light blue first, see how that looks. Oh, that's much better. That is much better. It's not as bright. Not as dark, I was meant to say. Here we go. That looks good. We use black kind of shade in the net. I think for this I'll use a mixture, I think, of black and purple for this one. Yeah, normally I don't use straight black when I shade. I know it tends to say it for much darker colors or for grays. Kind of shading a little of his shirt. There we go. Let me shade in his little hat. In fact, let me kind of darken the brim of his hat too. There we go. That looks good. That looks good. Let me shade in a part of his shirt. So you can see that he's really kind of stuck in there. There we go. There we go. That looks good. We go back over with. You know what? Yeah, purple. That's the one I'm gonna use. There we go. Go with the purple. And usually, like when I shade, I tend to use like purples and browns. I just think usually it makes everything look a lot more vibrant. You know, when I color in with purple and browns, really. There we go. In fact, also, let me color the bottom of their feet while we're at it. And give them a little shadows. I think I'll shade underneath Yako's hat here. I'm gonna do that. Let me color in his feet. Wacko's feet here. Go light kind of go across his face here. There we go. There we go. Yeah, I just want to kind of add a few more like touches to really kind of make this thing pop. Because that'll be the thing that'll happen. Like with happen when drawing is like sometimes you'll think you're done, but then you'll see something that'll stick out to you, and you need to improve, you need to fix it, you improve on it, or it just comes to you where you find you just want to make it even better. I think what else I was going to mention. What was it? What was it? He'll probably come back to me. Yeah, this has been a pretty fun stream so far. I got decided to actually draw Animaniacs. I ended up doing that, but also talking about Disney, talking about voice acting, and that's why I always look forward to when I do these streams. Is that I always like, I always like to kind of like draw. I also instruct on what I'm doing, but also be a chance to talk to you guys, make you laugh if I can, if I manage to do so, and also just have a good, laid back feel. Glad I can join whenever I can. Yeah, I always appreciate you I always appreciate you dropping in. And then yeah, you see, today's one's a little bit longer because I normally don't do them this long, but today's I usually have a little more free time than usual. Oh yeah, let me shade around his feet. That looks good. That looks good. Let me shade it. Let me add a little bit of shadow toward out a dot here for a skirt. And then follow that up with some red. Just a tree. You know what? Let me use some brown. Let me use some brown here for Yako's hat here. Oh, you know what? I think it's something I can do to get enough. get different shade red. Let me try something. Let me see. Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, I'm using this kind of this dark green as a kind of dark green. Since green is complementary to red, you can actually use some comp colors like that. Kind of get some good shells that don't like dull out the color. See, a lot of art instructors nowadays they'll tell you if you shade, they don't shade with color. They advise you not to use black, mainly because what happens is that when you add black to a color, it tends to dilute, tends to desaturate it. And while I'm kind of camp, and while I so agree to an extent, I don't think you should never use black. I think you should use it when it's necessary and use it when it suits for the color. Like I wouldn't use black to shade if I'm using like bright colors like a yellow or orange, because those are vibrant colors I may want to keep. But now if darker colors like say either a brown, black, blue, like already dark colors already, I'm more inclined to use black for that. Color in. Let me kind of shade underneath his hat a little bit here. And just kind of warm everything, his face up a little bit more. Let me add a little bit of orange too. It's still a little, his face still kind of feels a little pale. There we go. There we go. Let me come back in with the brown again. And also, I think of our brief side note, of all these characters liking for the main trio, I'd say like even though I like all of them, I'd say I probably like Yakko the best. For some reason, for me, like he always had the best lines. He always had the funniest jokes. Of course, it helps you with Rob Pausing being one of my favorite voice actors. That helps a lot as well. And it's funny when watching MX on TV, I ended up getting into. There was 3 periods where I ended up watching. There was back in the day when it was still new, where I used to see it on Cartoon Network. I used to see it there. Then occasionally I saw it on Nickelodeon. Then occasionally I saw it on Boomerang. And oh, there was a brief time it was on it was on that channel used to be called the Hub. And there was a brief moment where they aired on Animaniacs there, that and Tiny Toons. In fact, I think when I saw it on the Hub, that's what I think what got me. Because I always liked the show, but I think when I saw it on the Hub, that's when I really like rewatched those episodes and really got back into it. And of course, I started rewatching the whole show. Even that inspired me to kind of start watching. Inspired me even start a little fanfics that for a while too. Because at the time I was really into actually doing fanfics. Let me do the badge, the WB badge. Let me see if I can brighten that up. Let me see. Probably should hit the white first for that one. Definitely should hit the whites for that. In fact, while I'm at, I'm going to use this white for the highlights. And also kind of get rid of some more of these red marks. Maybe shade on Yakko's hat. And also, I'm going to start shading a little bit of their fur too. Just that to make it pop just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. There we go. There we go. There we go. We colored her fur too. And I'm just being very light with it as well. Just being very light. Here we go. That looks good. Let me add a little. Let me kind of brightness up just a little bit more. Add a little bit more of a paint. Kind of warm up his face. All right. Let me see. So I got those little dots here. Got the highlights here, here. Let me add a little tiny bit here. Actually, let me kind of make his eyes just a little bit bigger. All right, so I think we're done here for today. So now we got our scene of our classic Warner Bird characters. We got our classic Warners. They've just made their big catch, catching their big foe, Ralph the Guard. We got them all together. It's a bright and nice, hilarious scene. And I think that'll be it for today. Hey, y'all, I'm really glad you guys sat in on part of streaming. I know this is very different what I normally do because I normally don't stream that often on Sundays. I normally don't stream this long. But I'm glad you guys could drop in. And I should be back again, this next week, on the same time. Hope to see you all again. And also as a reminder, I do post my work on other sources. I don't post my work on Instagram. I post it on DeviantArt. I post pretty regular there. And so I hope you guys have a great week. Have a great day. Thank you.